Welcome back to another episode of 3 Wide on YouTube. I'm your host, Radney Crawford. This week we're mainly going to be discussing the news from Kyle Busch's press conference where he announced he will be going to Richard Childress Racing. Also, we will go over some free agency news on the Xfinity Series side of things, as well as point out some highlights from the release of the 2023 NASCAR schedule for all 3 series. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So on Tuesday, Kyle Busch, he announced that he will be going to Richard Childress Racing. He announced this at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And also they announced that he will be driving the 8 car, which is normally driven by Tyler Reddick. And Richard also announced that Tyler is under contract for 2023, so they will be getting a 3rd car for Tyler. It made more sense to put Kyle in the 8 car since that's going to be who's in there for the long term. They want to go ahead and get the chemistry and everything together so they're built up for more success in the future. Obviously, with that news, they're going to have to at least lease a charter for Tyler Reddick to get in that 3rd car, so he's locked in every week. And some people were speculating that this could, be a way of Richard kind of pressuring 23XI to possibly buy out Tyler's contract, put him in one of their cars next season. That is still to be determined. That's one way of doing it, I guess, if he goes that route. I see this being a 3-car operation next season and being a very strong 3-car operation. As long as everybody's able to, stay on the tracks, it's going to be interesting to see how things go for Tyler next season, with it being kind of a lame duck year with him in Richard Childress Racing. Also, one big question was Kyle Busch Motorsports. What happens to his truck team? Kyle didn't give any details yet. They're still working out some of the kinks in that. But Kyle Busch Motorsports, they will be swapping over to Chevy. And it's going to be interesting to see what that does as far as the driver lineup. I'm kind of not sure what drivers are under a Toyota contract. They're part of that TRD program, and what drivers just are simply there under the Kyle Busch banner, kind of like Noah Gragson and William Byron were, where they were with Toyota. They were at KBM, but they made the jump to the Xfinity Series. Both wind up driving for Junior Motorsports. David Wilson of Toyota did say that the drivers that are under their banner, which he named drivers like John Hunter Nemechek, Corey Heim, they are expected to stay under the Toyota banner and continue to progress in their program. And one of the more intriguing questions when it came down to the media getting to ask Kyle some questions after the press conference event was over was, I believe it was Alan Cavanna, and asked Kyle, was the situation brought to him, was it ever said to him basically that the 18 was not going to be an option for him to drive next season? Kyle replied saying, yes, it absolutely was, which I find intriguing, because then that kind of set off a little back and forth. Toyota, they came out with their own statement, basically David Wilson saying that Kyle was given the opportunity to stay in the Toyota family. Ultimately, it takes 2 to tango, which I find those comments intriguing, because the way I view it is you have Kyle Busch, who has driven this 18 car for most of his career in the Cup Series. He gives Toyota their first win in that car. He gives Toyota their first championship. He has pretty much made his career in this 18 car. And all of a sudden you come up to him and basically say, we're kicking you out of this ride, but you can still drive for Toyota. I don't see Kyle being all about that. He wants to be in that 18 car. He said, I've made this 18 car what it is today. I've made Toyota pretty much what they are today, and you're asking me to step aside. I don't know. I can see a scenario in my mind where maybe they did mention going to 23XI and might have mentioned going in that 45 car, which is his brother Kurt Busch's. And if they did come forward with that situation, Kyle's not going to be the one to either make his brother have to hunt for another ride or force him into, making a decision on retirement. So I don't really blame Kyle for kind of sticking to his guns, saying, if you're not going to have me in what's really the flagship car for Toyota, the flagship team for Toyota, then after all I've done, why should I stay if you're not going to show any, loyalty to me on that part? And that leads to the question of how, because you had Gibbs Racing where they were saying they're looking for sponsorship for Kyle, they're looking for it. How serious were they really looking? if the scenario was brought to him that, we're not going to have you in our car next season. We may not even have you a part. You're not going to be a part of this team as a whole anyway. That tells me that Joe Gibbs Racing kind of knew what they were going to be doing, and I'm sure the sponsorship search was not that hard of an effort. They didn't put all their strength into it as they could have, because it's Kyle Busch, multi-time champion. Yes, he is, a lightning rod of attention in the NASCAR series, especially with some of his antics if he's not happy or if something doesn't go his way. But he is a solid driver, probably one of the more solid drivers you could get from a sponsorship standpoint. So I don't think Joe Gibbs Racing really did all that hard of work when trying to find a sponsor for Kyle. And one thing I do want to go back to is the Kyle Busch Motorsports side of it. That's where I think Toyota is going to lose big time on this deal, which Kyle Busch Motorsports, that's been a huge part of the Toyota driver development program, the pipeline to getting drivers ready for the Cup Series. They've had drivers like Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Noah Gragson, and several others. Todd Gillen, you can keep going on, that are in the Cup Series at this moment, whether they're with Toyota or not, that Kyle Busch Motorsports helped get them to that point. And even right now, you got Chandler Smith, Corey Heim, and John Hunter Nemechek, these young drivers that are able to show their talents in top equipment. Now all of a sudden that is going to be done away with for the most part for future drivers looking for opportunities. Obviously, I can see Corey Heim, may put him in a Hattori, one of their Toyota programs in the Truck Series, give him a full-time season. John Hunter Nemechek, I'm sure, will now be elevated to the Xfinity Series. Since I found out that he is a Toyota driver before, I just thought he was signed with Kyle Busch Motorsports. He didn't have anything to do with Toyota racing development. But I was wrong on that. And as far as Chandler Smith goes, I haven't heard his name mentioned as far as being a TRD guy. Look for him to make the jump to the Xfinity Series as well. He's more than ready, I think, to go up there in it. And who knows, he could stay with Toyota, go up to a Joe Gibbs Racing or Sam Hunt Racing Toyota ride, or he could wind up with Chevy at Colleague, which seems to be the rumor that's really picking up steam here lately. And going back to the Tyler Reddick deal, I'm not sure what to expect if Richard's trying to make a play for Toyota to buy out his contract. I can see this situation getting very ugly myself as the season goes on. Say we get started into next year, Kyle, he's in that 8 car now, he's getting some of the top equipment along with Austin Dillon. Is Tyler Reddick going to be reduced to what will pretty much be a glorified R&D car? And if the results aren't there, if he sees he is lacking and in what Austin and Kyle Busch both have, it's going to start getting pretty personal pretty quick. So this is a situation that is going to be one to watch all the way through to the championship race next season. Now, switching our gears to the Xfinity Series side of things, probably one of the more surprising news we've had in silly season so far. Brandon Jones is announced as the driver of the number 9 car for Junior Motorsports. He is leaving Joe Gibbs Racing, where he has been with for the past few years. It's really kind of been the highlight of his Xfinity career so far. And this was a very surprising move. I did not see this coming at all. You heard a lot of many other names that were tied to this 9 car. Ultimately, I view this as a win for Junior Motorsports and a win for Brandon Jones. Yes, Joe Gibbs was one of the top teams in the Xfinity Series. Junior Motorsports, it may be, I view it as a lateral move, but maybe just a slight step up. Junior Motorsports has been one of the top teams for a long time now in the Xfinity Series, consistently competing for wins, championships, and this could be a good chance for Brandon to elevate his career. This could lead to opportunities possibly for the Cup Series that he was not going to have if he had stayed with Toyota, as many young drivers as they have coming through that pipeline. And one of the crazy things I found about Brandon Jones when I was doing some research was I did not realize Brandon Jones was so young. He is only 25 years old, this being his 7th full-time season in the Xfinity Series. And in the previous 6, he has only finished outside the top 10 in points once. So Junior Motorsports is getting a very solid driver. A lot of people kind of like to crack on Brandon Jones about all the wrecks he's in and whatnot, but the stats are there. He is a solid top 10 playoff contending driver who can get you wins. And who knows, when he gets to Junior Motorsports, he may just get even better and set the Xfinity world on fire. And a lot of interesting moves being made so far in free agency, and this is the Kyle Busch effect. I said Kyle Busch is going to be the biggest domino in silly season. Now you're going to start seeing moves made all over. Now it's who's going to replace Brandon Jones in the 19. Ty Gibbs, he's expected to be in the 18 car in the Cup Series next season. Who's going to be in that car next year? So now Joe Gibbs Racing is stuck with no full-time drivers at the moment slated for 2023. So they've really got to go to work. On the silly season overall with this Kyle Busch deal, I see it as a win for both Joe Gibbs Racing and Kyle Busch. I think Richard Childress Racing gets a huge win here. This is their chance, their best opportunity to take this program, which has kind of just been floating along over the past few years, and elevate it back to a championship contending team, which they haven't been really since Kevin Harvick was there. And for Joe Gibbs Racing, you're getting a young driver in Ty Gibbs, who will most likely be in that 18 car, probably the future of the sport, the future of the team. Go ahead and get him in that car now and get him, experience and set him up for a very successful career. And Toyota, again, they get a win with Tyler Reddick coming over. He is a amazing talent, amazing driver, and has been able to do a lot in Richard Childress Racing that a driver hasn't been able to do in a while. And it just, makes you wonder how he's going to do going to 2311 Racing. This is one of the up-and-coming top teams. You see how Bubba Wallace has performed, Kurt Busch has performed in that car, and the thought of Tyler Reddick being in that race, being with that race team, is definitely a scary thought for the rest of the field on the Cup Series side. NASCAR also, they released the schedule this week for all three series for next season, and it wasn't quite the schedule that I was expecting to see. And I think a lot of fans were expecting to see more changes. The way it's kind of been built up over this time, it's been so, normally this schedule is released earlier than what it has been this year, and it led to a lot of thought that, hey, this is going to be a big time schedule overhaul. We're going to go to some tracks we haven't been to in a while or been before, and it's going to be a great schedule, and kind of left me feeling a little bit underwhelmed, if I'm to be honest. On the Cup Series side, you do have the addition of North Wilkesboro and the Chicago Street Course. Not that fired up about the Chicago Street Course, but we'll just wait to see how that race turns out. On the Xfinity side, where a lot of changes were kind of noticed, they are now going to 8 road courses next season, which is probably about 5 road courses too many. Fans have been clamoring for more short track racing. They want more short tracks. And NASCAR's just been given more and more road courses. Now, nothing against road course racing. They have had some great moments, some great finishes, and great racing at these tracks. But it's almost like you're overwatering the plant. It's drowning. You're just kind of killing off the interest, the intrigue that is road course racing. If you want to go to Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and Road America, and I might even give you COTA, okay, I can live with 3 or 4 short tracks, but when you throw in 8, it's like, man, that's just that's a whole lot of road course racing going on, especially on the Xfinity Series side. Also, there will be no fall Talladega race next year for the Xfinity Series, which used to be the norm. Used to, they only went to Talladega in the spring, and the Truck Series and Cup Series went for the doubleheader in the fall. So they're kind of going back to the norm on that. I do hate to see Talladega lose a race. Just home track always puts on great racing, but again, that's kind of been the norm. There's nothing out of the ordinary there with them pulling Talladega. And the Indy Road Course, it will be making a return for both the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. No surprise there. A lot of people were hopeful that they'd be going back to the oval, which Ben Kennedy did mention in an interview with Sirius XM, that it's not and I'm paraphrasing here, it's not a question of if, but when they go back to the oval. That will happen in the near future. Whether that's 2024, 2025 is still to be determined, which that intrigues me to see the Cup Series back on the oval with this new car. The Xfinity Series, take with the Truck Series, go put them at IRP. That's the better race for both those series. And another change on the schedule for the Cup Series side is Richmond and Indy have swapped dates. Richmond will now be in July, while Indy will be in August. So that Richmond race, which was, from what everybody said, hot in August, is get ready for it to be even hotter in July. I'm not sure. They haven't released a time if it's going to be a night race yet or not. They did say the July Atlanta race will be a night race, which I feel like is a smart move, just because you get down here in the South, heat index, humidity, it is a it is a killer out there on the weekends, especially if you're going to be sitting out there watching an event like a NASCAR race. So good move on their part to move that race tonight. And also on the Truck Series side, they will be going to North Wilkesboro. I believe they'll be competing the same weekend as the NASCAR Cup All-Star race, and they will be returning to the Milwaukee Mile. And that race will be in the playoffs, if I remember correctly. But as far as the championship race goes, another year and another championship weekend at Phoenix. A lot of fans, including myself, are clamoring for that race to be put on a rotation, to swap that race around. Phoenix, it's a decent race, but I would love to see it kind of swap up. I feel like that kind of can lean, if you got the right people in the Final Four, can play to their hand better than others. Swap it up, go back to Homestead, go to a track like Charlotte, whether you want to do the Roval or the mile and a half, the oval itself. There's a lot of options still out there that you could run. And could you even imagine if they had a championship race at Martinsville and Bristol? I mean, that would just be chaos from start to finish. And I feel like a place like Bristol would be an excellent bookend to the Cup Series season. And that'll wrap up this week's episode of 3 Wide. Again, thank you for joining me and watching along. Bristol is getting ready to kick off tonight with the Truck Series, and they'll be racing tomorrow night with the Xfinity Series. Saturday night will be the Cup race, one of my favorite races of the whole year. It's going to be exciting. It's a cutoff race for the Cup Series, final regular season race for the Xfinity Series, and the start of round 2 for the truck. So a lot going on this weekend. You don't want to miss a lap of action. Be sure before you click off this video, hit that subscribe button. Go over, listen to my weekly podcast, which you can find on anchor.fm/3wide3, or wherever you listen to your podcast from, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music. We're on several different podcast platforms. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, and we will see y'all same time next week.